Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table, your Monday morning tabletop gaming news, community, and questions in 10 minutes or less. As always, I'm your host, Jack, and let's get to the show. Our first news item is that AEG is slowing its roll. So in a awesome blog post by these guys, they've announced that their new focus going forward, the whole company mentality is that they're going to try to focus on less, well, doing more with less. For a while, AEG has just been throwing spaghetti at the wall with tons of games, and they've announced that they wanted to consolidate and focus on a few core releases per year and lean into them completely, which I honestly thought that while reading this, it reminded me of the trajectory of normal board gamers, right? Because you get into the hobby and you're like, I gotta get all the games, all of them. I love all of them. And then you become a more mature board gamer and then you get to the point where you're like, well, I still need all the games, but I'm only going to really love some of them. The next up, we have Plaid Hat, who has announced they will no longer be supporting Ashes, which is kind of sad. They really made this one of the pillars of Plaid Hat Games way back in the day. But this is also really interesting because it's coming off the tails of some other announcements by Plaid Hat that they're ending their support for other games like Guardians and Crystal Clans. Yeah, they ain't getting nothing in the future. So I don't know what this means for Plaid Hat as a studio. They've had a lot of flops recently between Gen 7 and Comanut certainly didn't do what they wanted it to. So these guys, they really need a win. And for our last news item today is that the Origin Award nominees have been announced. And this is one of those awards that has some serious clout to it. This brings a lot of attention to various games in the industry. And while there's all kinds of categories, of course, we're board gamers around here. We want to look at the board game. So the nominees are Brass Birmingham, Chronicles of Crime, Cryptid, Everdell, Gizmos, Pulsar 2849. Pulsar 2849, I don't even know what that is. Rising Sun, Root, and Space Base. So I'm going to be paying attention to this, but it's an honor to be just nominated, so good on all of the nominees. That'll take us over to our announcements. PAX has announced that Unplugged will be December 6th to 8th in Philly as usual, and I'll be there. And that's going to be my third time going to the convention. I hope that you'll be there, and I'll get to see you. And Robert will be there. He's over there. He's going too.
I will?
Yeah, you're going. No options. He'll be there. We hope to see you at the con. And then Renegade has announced a physical version of Eternal, Chronicles of the Throne. This is a deck building game, and while I'm kind of over deck building games for the most part, unless there's some really cool other ancillary element and it's not really the core mechanic of the game, at the same time, it's by the dude who did Clank, Paul Denon, and that alone makes it worth a look. And for our last announcement for today, Stonemaier Games has given us some details for the Scythe modular board, which is going to be a board that replaces yours, and it has 4 double-sided components that can be messed around with in order to give different board arrangements, maybe a tighter space for 2 players, and it's very exciting for one of the most celebrated games of the last 3 years in board gaming. Now, this is supposed to be the final planned piece of content for Scythe. I like how they added planned in there, so it leaves a little bit of wiggle room in order to get something down the road. But I was so fascinated with this project that if we just scoot over here to our highlights section, I asked Jamey Stegmaier to come onto the show and tell us what was the most challenging aspect of designing a modular board for a game that wasn't even designed with a modular board in mind in the first place. So here's Jamey Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games.
Hi, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest design challenges I encountered while designing the Scythe modular board. Now, for a long time, for years, I thought that a modular board for Scythe would not be possible. The way I pictured it originally would be a bunch of individual hex tiles like you see in Space 4X games, where you start with a few hex tiles and then maybe you spread out from there, or you spread in. I couldn't figure out a way to make that work for a variety of reasons. Part of it is the balance of how the factions and their home bases start on the board inside. Part of it is the rivers. how the rivers play a big role in dividing different players from different areas, different factions. And I didn't want, with the randomness of hex tiles, I didn't want someone to maybe get completely blocked in by a river without any possibility of escape. And also on Scythe, on the board itself, there are important features on the board that aren't hexes. So there's the popularity track, the combat, the power track. Those are the two main things. Oh, and the triumph track at the top of the board. And so if you just have modular tiles, where do you have to reprint all those elements separately? How do you do that? And so I figured out the solution to many of these problems, and all these problems really, as far as I know, through a two-pronged approach. Rather than thinking about the tiles as individual hex tiles, I instead grouped them together into groups of 7. This idea was inspired by Clans of Caledonia, which has a different layout, but it has groups of lots of hexes with water features built in, certain other landscape features built into it, so they were able to balance it but still have a modular board, and that's what we did here. That was half the puzzle. The other half was realizing that we still needed a game board. So we made a game board with these so there's a new game board with these new areas that are blocked off that you'll randomly put those hex tiles on, these big 7 hex tiles at the beginning of the game. You'll randomize them and put them on here. You'll also randomize the home bases. So you still have the board. You still have the tracks that you need on the board. You still have certain elements, like you have control, or I have control over certain design elements that I just thought were really important to have on the board itself, rather than having random hex tiles come out at different places throughout the game or during setup. The board controls that. So the combination of those two things addressed the main problems that I stumbled over, the main challenges with designing or even having a Scythe modular board in the first place. I hope you enjoy it. I love the possibilities that will emerge from this, the stories that you'll tell, and I look forward to hearing them on Board Game Geek and the Scythe Facebook group. Thanks.
Thanks to Jamey for coming on to the show. If you want to learn more about the modular board, we actually did a Scythe spoiler cast for Rise of Fenris on the podcast channel a while ago, and he talked about some of the ideas that were boiling in his head that kind of generated the modular board in the first place. So you can go check that out on our website, or I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks to Jamey for coming on the show. You can pre-order the modular board as of May 29th from Stonemaier Games directly. And that's going to bring us over to our questions. And I've been thinking about this, right? Because we've been talking about this modular board, and I've been checking out some new expansions for some of my favorite games. And I've been thinking about when designers come in and they make these expansions for games that feel like they break the fundamental nature of the game. They can still elevate it, but it wasn't something that the game was originally designed for in the first place. It kind of evolves it into a whole new level of a thing. And I wanted to know, are there any games that you'd like to see kind of reinvented by an expansion? And if so, do you have any ideas on what that expansion might do? Let us know in the comments below. I would love to hear all about that. And that means that we are done with the show. Thank you so much for watching the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table. If you want to help see this thing grow, then do all the things. Do all the sharing. Make sure you talk to us about what you like, what you don't like. All that really helps. So once again, thank you for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald, and I'll talk to you next week. It goes so much better when I don't have a script. I just have bullet points and just kind of wing it. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcast, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.